I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker, Reverend Daniel Beckett. Yes, yes. And Reverend Daniel is a former member of Unity of the Blue Ridge. It was here that he was inspired to move to Missouri and to become a Unity minister. Yay, we're so glad you did. I'm honored and we'll give him a loving welcome to come up right now.
Thank you so much. It's delightful to be here. Today I want to speak about the power of community, but I feel compelled before I begin to share a little bit more about how I've come to be here. As we were driving up, Heather and I was remembering the first time I came into this church, which was the first time I'd been in any Unity church, and it's the first church I'd been in for probably almost 30 years before that. I did not speak church. People say, did you go to church when you were a kid? I said I was vaguely Lutheran. It never really took for me. It never took. But when I walked in here with Heather 20 years ago, about the fourth or fifth time, she said, I think you should really check this place out. And I thought, who is this woman that I married who's now asking me to go to church? That's unusual. But you know, when you move south from the north, has anyone done that? We came from Michigan. You learn a new phrase. Have you all found a church yet? It's a different world. I also learned that these pillars, which I thought, this is really weird to have these pillars right in the middle of the room. And then I realized what they were for. You can hide behind them. If you're an introvert like me, you can hide behind them, which I did. I was the guy when the minister said, are there any first timers here? I'm like, oh, no. I think I dropped something down here. But look what can happen. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you pray for. There's great power in community. There's great power in this community, which I know firsthand. I want to share a little bit about other introduction that I had to community. So several lifetimes ago, I was a musician. And by the way, can we not have another hand for the music? Sometimes the music is so good, I genuinely feel like we can all just go home now after they were done. And 3 of these band members were here 20 years ago when we first arrived. Several lifetimes ago, I was in a band, a rock band, in my 20s. We were based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we were a very big deal locally. The further you got out of town, the less of a big deal we were. We were somewhat known in Chicago, unknown just about anywhere else. But I played in that band for 6 years. We made records, we traveled, we played in Chicago and New York and all around our area as well. We were in the Soviet Union for a month in June of '91 when it was still the Soviet Union, right before that all changed. And one thing that I loved about being in that band is that we were a tight-knit community. There were 4 of us. I loved everything that we did. We would go around at that time, if you had a local show, and we played a lot, you would hang flyers, right, on telephone poles around town. And I loved doing that even. You weren't allowed to do it, so you had to keep your staple gun in your bag and then just take a look around. But, you know, the phone poles were covered with staples. We weren't the only villains, apparently. I loved doing that. I loved our shared sense of purpose that was so very strong. I loved playing shows. I loved riding in the van. I didn't love all the places we spent the night, and you're glad you're not there. but I love just about everything else. And I loved how we always, it was unspoken, we would strive for excellence. That also is happening in this community as well. I can see that. That power of community that I learned probably for the very first time playing in that band. I feel it here already. I think I felt it the very first time I came in this building. Community is in many ways about belonging, right? It's about belonging. It's about a shared spiritual vision, which we have here. And it's about balance in all things. All of life is about balance in all things. So I want to celebrate community today, particularly and lean into its power for transformation, for personal transformation, right? To each and every one of you and each and every one of us. It's an ongoing process. I had a spiritual teacher that explained that every time you sort of let something go, it's like peeling another layer of the onion. And I had been at this a while, and I said, that's a big dang onion. Every onion I ever had, you could be done. This is never done. This is a lifelong work that we do. In God's world, we all belong. All means all, every single one. Father Greg Boyle said that part of our job is to increase our circle of compassion so large that no one is outside of it. There is no outside of our circle of compassion. In community, we're kind of like rocks. Remember a rock tumbler? If you put rocks in a rock tumbler and you leave them in there for a long time, what happens? The edges get smoothed out, and we're kind of like that in community here and anywhere. We're like rocks with rough edges, and as we bump up against one another, we get smoothed out over time. It's quite an amazing process. Now, the other way to say that, well, I'll do it in the form of a question. Has anyone at church ever annoyed you? You should thank them. Thank them. They are your teacher. I know, I hate that too. They are your teacher. And that's part of the power of community, is that we keep coming back, right? We keep coming back to be a part of, to be a rock in the tumbler, to get our rough edges smoothed out over time without even realizing in many ways that that's happening. I want to share a story I heard that really underscores the power of being rocks in a rock tumbler. So there was a spiritual community some time ago that was an intentional community. It was a residential spiritual community, so different than this. And people paid to be a part of it, to live there and be a part of that community. And there was someone in that community that was so annoying to just about all the rest of the people, they managed to find a way to run them out of town, to get them to leave, right? And when the leader of the community heard what had happened, he tracked that person down and paid them to come back and be a part of the community. Now, why would he do that? Because everyone belongs, right? Everyone belongs. What we don't want to do is create yet another echo chamber where everything I hear I agree with, because the powers that be on the internet have figured out, oh, you like this? Have more of that. You don't like that? We won't show you any more of that, right? We don't want to be doing that. We want to all be here. We want to all belong and recognize the value in everyone. Even people that we're frustrated by are our teachers, right? And we need that. We absolutely need that. Mother Teresa once said, today, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. We belong to each other. That's true in our global community. And it's true in this community as well. Everyone belongs, everyone matters, everyone plays a critical role in the whole. You matter. The second thing that I've learned along the way is that on this spiritual journey, things are not always as they appear. Have you ever noticed that? I want to share a little bit about a time that happened with me, and this is in particular happens to be about my tithing practice. So I usually tell the ushers when I'm about to talk about something like this, lock the doors. I'm going to talk about money. Right? Because money is a hot topic amongst us human beings. I don't know if you've noticed that. And that's just as true in a spiritual community. And we all need to find our way with money somehow or other. And what has helped me more than anything, in fact, the only thing that has helped me is my tithing practice. Now, when I was first introduced to this practice, I thought, why on earth would anyone do that? Right? I have a calculator, and last I checked, 90% is less than 100%. Right? That is earthbound thinking. That's not spirit-informed thinking. Right? So let me define the practice. When I was a vaguely Lutheran, what I gathered about tithing was that meant you have to give money to the church. Okay, I invite you to toss that definition out the window. That is not it. The practice of tithing is a spiritual practice, just like our sitting meditation, just like our prayer practice, whatever it might be. And in a tithing practice, you set aside 10% of any and all money that comes to you. And that 10% is to be given to the person, place, or institution that has fed you spiritually, right, in that time frame. So say you have a job, you get paid twice a month. Twice a month, you set aside 10%, and you turn within and ask, where does this gift belong? Right? Who or what has inspired me spiritually? Where have I been fed in the last couple of weeks spiritually? And if you do that, something will rise in you, and I invite you to give to that place without thought or question. Right? That's where it goes. Now, if you're a member of this community, I suspect what will happen to you is what happens to me a lot. This community will come up a lot. I mean, are you not spiritually fed here on a regular basis? Yes, but that's not the same as you have to give money to the church. As soon as you have to give money to the church, that's not a gift anymore, right? That's a tax, basically. It has a compulsion in it other than the Spirit, right? You don't want to be moved by anything but the Spirit in your tithing practice. So if you have never taken this practice up, I invite you to begin today. If you have and stopped doing it, like I did, I don't even know how many times. This was genuinely hard for me to learn and to stick with. I invite you to begin again. And if you are already a tither, I invite you to just feel the joy, you know it well, the joy that is within you when you give in that manner. All right, has anyone ever walked up to you and, say, handed you a $100 bill or something like that? No? Has it ever happened? If it has, raise your hand. I'm dying to know. Okay, here and there. Y'all need to be doing more of that here, by the way. They have them at banks and ATM machines. No, the reason I use that example is that has happened to me. And what I learned was when someone has literally handed me out of the blue, right, saying something delightfully weird, like, the Spirit told me to give you this money, and I say, thank you very much, right? You get that same feeling when you're the one who's giving. I didn't know that until I started giving at the tithing level. It will transform your life, I guarantee it. And it will open you up to possibilities that you may never have realized before. Right? And I swear, Reverend Darlene did not say, come talk to them about tithing. This is just coming up for me right now. But it will change your life. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because the first time I actually wrote a tithe check, 10% of the money that came in, I thought I was losing my mind. And then I thought, well, I got a mind that could use some losing. Or at least parts of it. But the joy, the liberation that I felt, I had not experienced that in any other way. I would never stop doing it now. Never stop doing it. There's great freedom in that. My point is, things are not always as they seem. 90% is not less than 100 in the realm of the Spirit. Right? Because I have never wanted for anything Any goal that I had, anything I wanted, I have somehow or other managed to attract it, find it, or what have you. I have no problems in my life that I didn't create. What about you? Or as I've heard it said, I've had thousands of problems in my life, a few of which have actually happened. Things are not always as they seem. When we are learning to see spiritually, we see quite differently than we did before, perhaps. That's been my experience. There's this idea that says if you give something away, you somehow have less of it, right? Well, that's not true with love, right? We know that. Well, I'm telling you, it's not true with all kinds of things. And I've never felt like I had less money because I give 10% to where I'm fed spiritually. There's a quote from 1 Corinthians that I think just nails this. It reads, "Those who are unspiritual do not receive the gifts of God's Spirit, for they are foolishness to them." Right? And they are unable to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Can you hear that? Do you have friends that sort of maybe not in the same spiritual realm that you're in, and you think, should I really tell them what I did on Sunday? They want to hear? Do I want to be that weird person? Right? Because when we begin to see things through God's eyes, so to speak, through our own true eyes, right? Because we are spirit, that is who we are. And we can relearn and remember to see that way. Things are remarkably different than they are with our thinking mind, right? This kind of earth-bound. Another thing I noticed, and I shared that I wasn't really churched growing up, and at some point, and I think it was after we had first started coming here, and I was hearing things I'd never heard before in a church, and I thought, where have you people been all my life? And then I thought, do they know you're saying this? Because they're going to be mad. I went and decided I'm going to read this for myself, right? Which sounds like a bold statement, a weird thing to say in church, because most people are like, you're just now figuring this out? Yeah, I'm just now figuring this out. And I read the Gospels, and I thought, did you know this is the same story, like told 4 different times? And people looked at me like, where have you been? I'm like, not in church. That's where I've been, is not in church. But what I noticed about it is that this kingdom of God that Jesus keeps talking about is an upside down kingdom, right? When compared to an earthly kingdom, like the kingdom of Rome, for example, from that time and place. The realm of the Spirit is in many ways an upside down kingdom from the terrestrial, from the earthly, from the only human point of view. This was a story in which Jesus wins by serving, right? That's sort of the opposite. Aren't you supposed to be at the top of the pyramid to be winning? Jesus wins by serving and triumphs in the end by losing. I put losing in air quotes because we know it wasn't losing. But to those people at the time, that was the worst thing that could ever happen, right? That is an upside down kingdom. We read in Matthew, the greatest among you will be your servant, right? Upside down. How is that? The greatest is supposed to be the king. No, the greatest is the servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now, you've probably heard many phrases like that. No, it's not like this. Turn it upside down. That's how it is, right? That's why it's such a mysterious message. Hard to get at. Easy to misunderstand is what I've gathered about it. This is the takeaway. It's not uncommon for God's truth to defy what we might think of as logic, right, in our thinking mind. Things are not always as they seem. So stay open to possibilities. Stay open to possibilities. The third thing I want to share about community is it's important that we stay in balance in all things. We have to balance the inner with the outer, right? Even in a spiritual community like this, in fact, it's essential here. We balance the spiritual and the material. We balance the idea and the action. So for simple examples of things that are in balance, you just look around at the world. The natural world has a way of staying in balance. It just does, right? If something here shifts, then something over here will shift and it'll come back into balance. And we're no different in that way. If you change your mind, you've heard change your mind, change your life. If you change your mind, your life will change because the whole system has to come back into balance, which it will do. And right now, I won't ask for a show of hands because I'm pretty confident about this. How many people here are breathing? Breathing. Now, are you only inhaling? Because that's where you get more of what you want. Or are you exhaling too, which is where you let go of that which no longer serves you? Right? You're doing both in perfect equilibrium. I know that's true. Sleeping and being awake. Another natural cycle, right? We're in balance in that way. The seasons, summer and winter. The difference between the idea and taking an action, we stay in balance, right? We do both. I heard this in an old song. For everything there is a season. You know this one? And a time for every purpose under heaven. The Byrds wrote that. And then that's how I know time machines are real, because I found it in the Bible too. And I thought, they went back and added that. They must have. There's no other explanation. The author Herman Hesse, who wrote Siddhartha, said in that book, within you there is a stillness and a sanctuary to which you can retreat at any time and be yourself. Right? That's our inner sanctuary. We all have that. We spend time there. But we don't want to only spend time there, right? We want to, that's kind of like inhaling. We're taking in nourishment, if you will. We're remembering who we are. Perhaps we're letting go of something that no longer serves us. But then we also show up in service, right? We balance. We do our inner work, and no one can do our inner work for us, right? We know that is true. Nobody can do my inner work for me, right? But I can't do it alone either. That's a paradox of this spiritual way of being in the world. We need community. And yes, I need to do my inner work, and I need community at the same time. To be amongst what my first minister would describe as a merry band of seekers. If you've been around here a while, and I know some of you have, you've heard that from this platform many, many times. I picked up on that too. Here's another example of balance that occurred to me. So you know the prosperity principle, right? The law of mind action. The law of mind action simply says, there's a lilting way of saying it. Thoughts held in mind reproduce after their kind. Do you know this? Thoughts held in mind reproduce after their kind. So whatever you focus on, you get more of, is another way to put it. That's the law of mind action. That is important to know. That is a central life principle, central spiritual principle, prosperity principle, but it also needs to go hand in hand with what I like to call the law of actual action, which just means out in the physical world, of service. Or, as I've heard said, don't be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. Right? So you turn within, you do your work within, then you step out in the world in loving service, as you are guided to do by the Spirit. Whatever that may be. Whatever that may be. We hold all things in balance, and we find the Spirit in this balance. So I want to close with this. The power of community is in many ways rooted in the fact that we all belong, right? This is a place where we can belong. This community is open to anyone, right? I didn't have to show an ID card, right? It's not a club you have to become a member of. You can come here and be a part of what is happening. That's one of the beautiful things about church in general, is that, yeah, you belong. Well, how do I know if I belong? Well, did you come here? Then you belong here, right? You belong here as much as someone who's been here 20 years like me or longer like others here. You belong. You matter. Everyone matters. Pardon? 50 years. And things are not always as they seem. Things are definitely not always as they seem. I'm curious, we can't do Q&A now, but I'm very curious, and maybe you can tell me after the service a time where you have found that to be true in your life, when you've seen how true that is. Things are not always as they seem. When we learn to see through spiritual lenses, which is our natural way of seeing that we lost but we can regain, when we begin to see that way, things become remarkably different. Again, that's why I like the experience of and describing any unity church that I've been in, and I've been in many, including my own. I know that we belong because we're all delightfully weird. And that's one of the things that will happen as you follow the spiritual path. You will become anchored in the Spirit. You'll become anchored in a reality that's outside what your mind is thinking, right? We call it actual reality. And you start to show up in a way that is delightfully weird. All my favorite people are delightfully weird. I wouldn't want it any other way. You can be that too. And balance in all things, always. That's true everywhere. Always balance in all things. So balance your inner work with you showing up in service here in this community. Right? Because when we first started coming here, we didn't just come and stay. There were phases in our relationship with our growth path and with this community, with any spiritual community. And at first, we came, I hid behind a pole. We showed up fairly regularly, and I would put a little something in the basket and feel good about doing my part with that. But what I didn't do was get involved in any way. Now, I've been hearing that forever since I was a kid. You should get involved. And my answer was always the same. No, I'm not doing that. Remember, I mentioned I was an introvert. I just play an extrovert on Sunday mornings, but I'm an introvert. No, I don't want to get involved. I don't know those people. I don't know what they're going to ask me to do. I have limited resources. No, I'm not doing that. And so we had taken in everything we could just from kind of being spectator participants, right? And ended up fading away. There was a long period of time, I don't know that it was a year, but months at least, where we had stopped going. And I realized during that time, something's missing from my life. Something really important is missing. I'd never felt that in particular before. And I knew it was spiritual community because I'd been missing that. And so we came back and I did get involved. And I led workshops and someone asked me to be on the board. I made the mistake of saying yes. No. I'm kidding. If someone asks you to be on the board, say you'll think about it, and then go decide. How many board or former board members do we have here today? Raising it. See, I joke. It's a wonderful way to serve, right? I was on the board here before we moved to Kansas City for seminary. So those phases, showing up, doing what I knew to do, kind of having it lose its charm in a way because I was no longer growing because growth required my participation, right? And then to come back to it and really have it take root. So I hope that if you are kind of like I was then, that consider getting involved in some way, right? Volunteer for something. I tell people at church, just bring a bag of almonds. That's a good beginning, right? So that everyone can put it out there with the snacks. I don't know if you still do snacks here, but get involved in some way. And again, just from me to you as a spiritual traveler that we are, begin tithing if you haven't, for real. You don't have to give money to the church. When I first heard about that, I was like, I'm so tired of ministers trying to trick me out of my money, right? They would do all kinds of stuff. They've had what I've heard in sales described as commission breath. It's very off-putting, commission breath. And so many of us are so uncomfortable with money anyway, that if you're the one up here that need to talk about it, we can spot that a mile away if someone's not comfortable with it, right? So I invite you to begin and have that experience and know that truth that says to keep it, you have to give it away, right? You cannot outgive the Spirit. That's not possible. And if you were like me, kind of trying to hang on to everything that you could, this was before I realized this truth, before I realized that if I want to experience a generous universe, I need to show up as a generous presence in this universe first, right? I can't kind of fearfully hang on to what I have, not wanting to let any of it go and say, okay, universe, you go first. If I win the lottery, then I'll be generous. Okay, start now. Start now. Because as you show up, as you are in this world will be right back to you. The universe in many ways is like a mirror. Whatever you bring to it, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to get. So if you become willing to give at the tithing level, and there's a reason that it's 10%. Yes, it's tradition. But the real reason it's 10% is because I can give 2% of my income, and it doesn't make me sweat. I cannot give 10% of my income and pretend that ain't happening, right? You have to come to terms with it. I cannot give at that level and at the same time continue to be afraid that there's not enough for me in this world. It's not possible, right? So if you can begin this practice and maintain it, then you will no longer fear that there's not enough, right? Do you want that in your life? I do. I'm still working on that. Anyway, balance in all things, giving and receiving. My main point is this: let us love, support, cherish, and serve our community and everyone in it, right? That is our goal. It's an essential part of all of our spiritual growth. Again, no one can do our inner work for us, but we can't do it alone. We need the community, and you have a vibrant and healthy community here. You can feel it a mile away. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. I'm reminded when I first met Reverend Darlene, she's an excellent speaker, a really great leader. And I heard her speak, and I thought, and I was really new at it, and she'd been doing it a while. She's a really good speaker, and I thought, I can learn to do that, maybe. If I work on it, I can do that. And she would lead a meditation, and I thought, I can do that. And then she'd start singing, and I thought, that's not fair. I could do that, but you don't want me to. You have a very powerful spiritual community here. It's all of you. It's not one person. If no one showed up here, as wonderful as the band and Reverend Darlene and all the staff members are, it doesn't work. It's you. You got to be here. That's the only way it works. Everyone matters. Here's my affirmation. Embracing community is embracing God. Embracing community is embracing God. Together we renew our minds, and guess what? Our lives are transformed. It works. God bless you, and thank you for having me here today.
We are all great beings of light, shining in apparent darkness. We are all love, joy, and peace, the truth of who we are. We are all part of the divine, living in a human body. We are all one with God, His beloved child, perfect in His sight. We claim who we are with every breath that we take. We love everyone, knowing they are one of us. We take care of our beloved earth, knowing that we are all one with it. We live love and give love to all. We see God in everything there is, for we all are one, for we all are one, for we all are one. There's no separation, for we all are one, for we all are one, for we all are one. There's no separation. We are one. We are one. We are one.
Sarah. Would you mind telling us where that song came from, please?
So Mariah Brooks wrote a poem, and my friend Lynn Hikes asked me to set it to music for Mariah as a Christmas gift, and then it somehow started being played here.
Isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? Oh, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take us through a brief meditation, and I'm going to sing something a cappella briefly, then we'll go into meditation. Would you be willing to sing that we are all are one when we come out?
Sure.
That would be great. So I invite you now to close your eyes, allow your body to relax. If you're willing to place both feet on the floor, if crossing your legs is best, whatever makes you comfortable. We are opening now in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of oneness. We are opening. We are opening. We are opening. We are open. And so now, with our hearts and our minds open, we come to this place of Selah, the place of receiving. We receive that which is coming to us in this stillness in our divinity. We send gratitude to our amazing vessels. We affirm that our thoughts are that of goodness in this now moment. We know that we have everything that we need right here and now in this moment. And now in this moment and in the next. We take a moment to review our week in any place where there are wrinkles or lumps or bumps. We just take our beautiful spiritual hand and we smooth them and we say, we are here to do the work that is ours to do, to heal, to awaken to the wholeness that is already there, in, through, and as us now. And we recognize that in this holy, holy place, in this goodness, that we all are one.
We are one. We are one. For we all are one.
Let's sing together.
For we all are one. For we all are one. There is no separation. For we all are one. For we all are one. For we all are one. There is no separation. We are one. We are one.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, band.